Hello everyone, welcome to the episode 22 of SoLeadSaturday. The guest we have today, Brian O'Neill. He took his education in music and he has his own music group, Orchestrotica. And along with that, actually, currently he is a founder of a consulting firm which helps organizations to getting into the designing of data analytics and ML space. So let's hear his career journey. How did he manage to keep his balance and keep pursuing his interest as well as have the good career as well. So let's hear his career journey and how he is managing to be the leader in one of the areas he is passionate about. So welcome, Brian, and
Yeah, thanks for
very
having me.
happy to have you on this podcast
Yeah,
because
it's good to be here.
yeah, and I can truly see your interest actually by the way you have your background with lots of musical instruments
Yeah,
and other things. So I can truly see that how do you manage yourself, keep up to date with your interest as well as your professional career.
sure.
So thank you so much for being my guest.
Yeah.
And to start with, yeah, we are going to start with your when I saw your career profile, it was basically you took your education in the music actually. It
hmm
is not aligned to what you do right now.
hmm
So how did you when did it start? Like when did you find that you would like to get into this space as well, and you would like to keep the balance between both the things?
Sure. So, yeah, so to kind of give an overview just of what my career is, so to speak. Um, I work professionally as both a musician and I work professionally as a consultant, and in the form of the company I run, which is called Designing for Analytics. And as you said, that's a
Mhm.
human centered design consultancy, and I specialize in data products. So, my mission there is to help data strategists and technical product managers, people who are experts at working with the mathematical part and the technical part of data, and ensuring that in the last mile,
Mhm.
people, when these are developing human in the loop software applications in particular, people can actually get value out of these tools, applications, products, and things that we're making. There's a high failure rate in the industry in terms of being actually able to produce analytical decision support.
Mhm.
Uh, that people can say, "Oh, yes, this helps me make a decision, and I know what to do next." A lot of the times, it falls flat. People are like, "What do I do with this? I don't know what to make of this." Like, bunch of charts. Like,
Mhm.
now what? And the data scientist is scratching their head, like, "I did, I gave you what you asked for. You asked for a forecast model, and this is it." They don't know what a p-value is, and it's just maybe you've heard about this before. So my mission is really to help close that last, what I call the last mile gap, and through
Mhm.
human centered design. So that's that piece. And then the music piece, as you said, I went to school for percussion studies. So
Mhm.
I work at home out of my studio. Both of my careers work from the same desk.
Mhm.
um, and oftentimes when I'm in designing for analytics mode, orange is in my brand, so often I have my like orange backdrop here. But I thought for this show, since you were interested in Brian, not so much just my consulting work, I thought I would just show people like, what this is where I work. This is my office. So, but so how did I get into this? So as you said, I went to I have a degree in percussion studies, and actually I got into web design early in the late mid to late '90s
Oh, nice.
out in Arizona.
Mhm.
And yeah, and it's funny how I got this job, because my design work and music work has kind of like, interweaving like this all the time. I'm meeting music people in the design world and other designers and technologists that play music, and on and on and on. It's kind of these two paths have always wound together. And I
Mhm.
got my first job. I was a principal percussionist in Flagstaff Symphony, which is up near the Grand Canyon.
Mhm.
And they had just contracted with a small agency in Flagstaff, where I went to school, to get their first marketing website done. And
Mhm.
so the conductor knew I had been interested in just kind of this thing called the internet. And I forgot how we got talking, but long story short, he introduced me to the founders of that company, and I began apprenticing there in the summer. So I playing with some summer orchestras and was able to stay in Flagstaff and kind of like
Mhm.
just start a little career there on the side. So I apprenticed and learned how to write HTML and Cold Fusion and Photoshop. And at the time, web designers, you kind of did everything. You did some code and you did some,
Mhm.
you know, whatever. So so that's kind of how that started. And so by the time I left college with my music degree, I had been doing some little consulting projects on the side and just mostly website design and this kind of thing. And so when I left Flagstaff, Arizona, to move to Boston, where I live now, I live in Cambridge, kind of near about a mile from Harvard. I wasn't sure what I was going to do when I landed, and so I started looking to see what opportunities were here. And as it turns out, uh, an old roommate, an old high school friend of mine, was going to MIT to get a master's. We were the same age, so he was finishing up at the Naval Academy at the same time I had graduated, and he's like, I'm moving to Cambridge. And I'm like, wow, who are you living with? He's like, I don't know. And I said,
Yeah.
well, I don't know what I'm doing. So do you need a roommate? He's like, sure. And so that was how it was really a very off the cuff decision, because I didn't really know, you get this music piece of paper, and a music degree on paper, with the exception of like teaching at a collegiate level, is a very kind of worthless degree. It's not a free ticket into your first job or something like that. No one cares. No one asks. No one has ever seen my degree, and they will never ask me that at a gig, because it's very irrelevant to kind of the way professional music works. Like, they don't care how you are on paper; it just doesn't matter. So at any rate, I decided it was a good spot because Boston had a great music career, and so I ended up out here living with my old high school buddy for a couple of years, and I jumped into the music scene and the tech scene. So I was fortunate to be in the middle of the .com boom, and got hired by a startup over the phone. Never met anyone, but I had a full-time job, and I was like, okay, I'm going to, work during the day, and then I'll start gigging at night and try to jump into the music scene. And that's kind of how it started. So that was a tech startup. If you remember Ziff Davis, ZDNet, and any of these brands from the late 90s, it was a spinoff of ZDNet called Smart Planet. And then I went to Lycos, which was one of the big search engines in the late 90s that competed with Yahoo and Alta Vista. And then from there, I got into business software. I started working on Lycos's financial services arm because I wasn't trained as a classical designer. But I did understand, I was very technical for a designer, so I always was able to interface well with engineers and developers. And so I kind of found a niche in the kind of the boring financial services products, the trading platforms, and some of this stuff that most of the other designers didn't have any interest in. So that kind of became my niche, was financial services for a while. And then that kind of spawned into analytics, because you get into, when I worked at Fidelity and JP Morgan and started working on trading systems and software, now you're getting into analytics and, doing stock research and all of this. That was kind of my first dive into the analytical space, which then introduced me to kind of my whole analytics work. And when I finally went independent in 2006, I just had a large community of people that had worked in financial services and what I call technical data products in general. And so that just kind of became this little niche that I started working in. And so I decided to really focus my consulting as a designer in this analytics space, instead of kind of being a generalist. And that was fun. I'd done a lot of startup work and met a lot of different people in Boston. There's a great digital community here. But that's kind of how I went on that. And at nighttime, I was building my music career. And back in 2006, when I went independent, I just decided I needed more time to work on my music and on my design consulting work. And so that enabled me to finally take on some of the projects like Mr. Ho's Orchestrotica, this group that I run, making records, and then just really getting more deeply ingrained with the music community here in Boston. So now I have my kind of two careers, and I play with orchestras and some of the Broadway touring type shows that come into town or that are produced here in Boston. I play in the pit orchestras with those, and I do some touring with a couple. I'm in a klezmer band, and I have an Irish Celtic project that I play in. So I do a bunch of different things there and try to find the balance.
Yes.
So
So
yeah.
definitely, actually, you're truly leading actually both the spaces. But still, one thing I find common in between both the areas is in the design space or in the music industry, you have to be creative actually. So I think that is something, a common connect between these two passions that you pursue. And if you have to choose, what do you enjoy the most, like music or your?
I've been a musician my whole life, so there's definitely and that's my 6-week-old son that you're hearing maybe in the background. So we're all dealing with coronavirus. We're all getting exposed to our families, but I have a 6 week-old son as well, so that's new.
Mhm.
Uh, but I don't look at it that way because I used to very much try to like I hid my design life from my music friends, and I hid my music life from my professional career. Like both of them are professional, but I've kind of stopped doing that and just kind of embraced that like it's one person, one thing, and it's not that I love one more than the other. I've learned there, I get exposed to two very different audiences and groups of people, and both of those have been really positive impacts on my life, especially now in the analytics stuff. Just
Mhm.
the scientists that I've met, the technologists, and people that ha- really fascinating backgrounds and abilities.
Mhm.
Right now, it's just amazing what's possible with technology there. And then it's great to be involved with artists who are questioning why we're doing all this stuff, and and is this the right thing to do, and what does it mean to live in a world with all this kind of technology. So
Mhm.
for me, it feels like a really good balance because I can relate to both
Mhm.
sides of that from like a human experience. And so I don't really have one that I like more than the other. I really enjoy doing both things, even though my roots are in music. I mean, I guess that's my calling,
That's
but
great, actually,
yeah,
because most
I
of the
enjoy
time
both.
people struggle, but that's great that you have that, passion, and you keep that continue growing
Sure.
in both areas.
Hmm.
And the way I see it, like for your music, also your designing space is going to help you to,
Hmm.
the way you constructed your website or something to reach out to the people for the music industry as well. It is moreover like kind of going to balance in between
Hmm.
both the professions, where you can just have the merging of both and come up with something creative actually. So
Hmm.
that is definitely I can see moving towards your passion again actually, as you already say that you try to keep both the interests going actually parallelly, so you
Hmm.
try to find the time and everything. But
Hmm.
if there are people who are struggling to pursue that passion, what are the important steps actually person has to take? First is like always you have to proactive and find the time if you are interested in something, which is like very important stage where people always complain not having time or something like that.
Sure.
But what other steps do you think that person has to take to pursue the passion?
Well, I think part of it is you have to decide, like, when you talk about the passion, are you talking about, do I want to make a career out of this? Those
No,
aren't the so.
passion is not always like where you deal with growing in a career
Uh-huh.
specifically. It is moreover like you can have more than one passion, but it is
Hmm.
just finding out the balance and finding out the time. Some of the passions can convert into the career choices, but
Hmm.
some of those might not give you that financial like returns or something like that.
Hmm.
But still people continue to manage that because they find that pleasure or the happiness doing that.
Hmm.
So anything specific that you would like to mention when it comes to pursuing that kind of an interest?
Well, I think there's a couple things, right? There's, do
Mhm.
I know what my passion is, which is a different question than like, I know what I want to do and I don't have time to do it. And the reality is I'm casting a generalization. We make time for what's important,
Mm. Mhm.
right? So the question is, what are you willing to give up
Mm.
to go spend time on this passion? If that's what it takes, you really need to know how you're spending your time and
Mhm.
decide, like, how much TV are you watching, or how much how much commute are you doing? Well, maybe you need to live cheaper, move closer to town, and get 2 hours of your life back, which is 10 hours a week of commuting time, which you could then put into your interest. And but a lot of change is hard. It's like, yeah, we should all go to the gym more, right? It
Yeah.
change is difficult. So it's, what kind of life do you want to have?
Mm.
And if it's a career kind of thing, I think you have to people ask me about getting into consulting, and
Mhm.
it's like, well, do you wake up and roll out of bed and say, I'm excited to go 2 feet to my desk or whatever and work on this every day? Am I driven to go do that? No one's going to tell you what, when you're running your own business, like in my case, no one tells me what to do.
Yeah.
So I don't have a boss, but it also means no one's saying, meet these requirements, check these boxes, then you get a grade, then you get a whatever. Nope.
Mm.
It's just a big open canvas, and you have to decide, what you're going to make out of that canvas. And that's a gift. If you have the time and the resources to do that, it's a gift. So if you're thinking about going independent, for example, one thing I would tell people is, and these aren't all my ideas, these are all things that I've heard in my journey, but like how wealthy, like if you're a technologist, for example, most technology people are making very good money compared to a lot of people that are out there. So how meagerly can you live for a while to save money so that you can quit that day job and pursue your passion? And it doesn't need to be a hard quit. It can be a dovetail thing where maybe at night you're slowly building up this business, and then you're going to drop the hammer and say, I'm leaving my job. But you've saved up a lot of money to give yourself a runway so that you can start to develop this new business or passion or whatever the heck the thing is that you're going to do. You can plan those things out. I would say too, to younger audience, if your audience is skewing, late college and early career kind of thing, it's trying a lot of stuff. I think, and I can't remember where I read this, and so I can't cite it exactly, but someone was kind of saying like, your passion will find you through you trying out and sampling lots of different things. It's not so much like you start with the passion and then that's what's going to define your life, because you might find out like, and I've seen this happen with musicians, like, I don't want to do this this sucks. I hate driving like far to play a crappy gig and then they don't pay us or whatever the thing is. It's not the same thing as it was in school where I just showed up and there's a stage and like we're here to play the music but you don't think about like, how do I like negotiate a contract and how do I get more gigs and how do I do all this other stuff that has nothing to do with like playing the vibraphone here or whatever. It has nothing to do with playing the instrument part. There's a career there. And this is true for any business, right? There's doing the work, but then there's getting the business so you can do the work that was your original passion. Do you want to do all that kind of extra stuff that isn't the doing the work part? So someone once said, kind of put this in the words of, there's working in your business and there's working on your business. And if you're spending all your time working in it, you're not really growing it because you're just going to work on it. And then when the project ends, it's like everything drops out and it's like, now what do I do? There's no pipeline. There's no leads coming. You're just like, what's happening? So you have to be working in it and working on it. And this is a big kind of way I separate my time out. And if anything, like even with the ensemble I run, I spend a lot more time working on Mr. Ho's orchestrotica than I do working in it, which means playing the vibes, writing the music, going to rehearsals, going on tour. That stuff is like 10 to 20% of what it takes to be a leader and to run that. For my guys, it's more like 80% of their time commitment is really showing up to play and being in a supportive capacity because I run all the business part of it. So that's not for everybody. Not every musician wants to do that, and that's fine. But I had a mission, and I had something to state as an artist that I wanted to get my different weird thing out there, and I'm willing to do that work. And it's not right for everybody,
Yeah, so that this is like a couple of very important points that you mentioned. It is like like be an explorer or work hard towards whatever. Like if you want to pursue something, actually, it is so much goes under you, like what you want to do, how much time you want to spend, how you want to do the effective time management. As you mentioned, couple of things like avoid your commute if something that you want to pursue is like not giving you the time. Finding out and doing the effective time management to pursue that passion is very, very important. And finding out the ways around, actually looking into the people, what they are doing. It's very important to be an explorer. So which is very valid point you mentioned. Actually, if you are an explorer, definitely you can find out what you are looking for, and you definitely manage to be one. So
and you could start
yeah.
You can start stuff late too. Some people talk about, oh, it's too late for me, and I've been at this company for 25 years, or I've been a software engineer for. It's really not. There are people that completely stop and change. I mean, I run this Celtic. I was telling you, this Celtic band, and it's led by a couple. One of them was one of the original singers in the Irish Tenors, the Three Irish Tenors, which was a touring group in the last 10 or 20 years ago. And his wife was a fiddler, and they met on, I think, playing Riverdance on tour or something like this. Well, they have their new project, Ishna, that I play in, but they also now run a shared kitchen space for like food trucks and chefs and people working on food products and food services who don't need a permanent building, but they need a commercial grade kitchen to either get their truck ready, get ready for weddings, to do, you know, fancy custom one-off meal corporate events or whatever. And so they found a need for that, and they run that business. And they're like, you know, probably between 40 and 60 years old, like me, and they're starting a new thing, and they're both trained in music, and but that's their other thing that they're doing now. And it's not too late to like decide you want to try something else, but it does mean you have to embrace some risk. And so with all reward, right, the more risk you take on, the more reward there is there. So you have to decide, like, a steady paycheck gets very convenient, but I like to remind people too, as much as I think companies try to protect their W-2 employees the most W-2 employees are not working with a contract. It's employment at will, and you could get fired anytime. So while you're probably higher in the list than a contractor or a consultant is, just remember, like, there's really not a guarantee there anyways. So why not live a little bit like, I'm going to protect my downside risk a little bit. I'm going to save money to make, not just for the rainy day fund, but maybe also in case this isn't the right life. I'm not stuck here. I'm not living at 95% of my expenses all the time. I'm living within my means, but I have when it's time to go, I'm not going to be stuck here. I mean, there's nothing worse than feeling like you go to a job every day and you're not appreciated. It's not the right fit. I feel bad for anyone that doesn't have the choice to do that. So if you're in a professional situation where you're making a relatively good income that's much beyond what you really need to live, there's no reason not to be spending some money on that and then making the time for what's important.
Yeah.
You know, most of the time when I hear this, it's like, when I look at someone that's saying this, it's like, I don't know, like, it seems like there's a lot of stuff you could make time for if you really wanted to, but it's like there's 24 hours in a day and you got to decide, like, how much time are you going to spend watching TV or whatever the thing is that there's a lot of time in the day. It's just, how are you going to use it? You know?
Yeah, a couple of my prior guests also mentioned that actually, if you want to pursue something, like, you have to reduce your watch time. Like you mentioned a couple of points, which is like, have the lesser commute. Like, people who have the reading habit, it is fine, but people who don't enjoy reading or something, and they are interested in more or like other areas, actually, they have to find the place which has the less commute and have effective time management to pursue what they are interested in. So thank you so much for sharing that. Actually, it is very insightful for the people actually who are going to listen to it, because a lot of time I have seen in my career journey as well, a lot of time people complaining around my profession as well. I wanted to do this, but I can't do this. That kind of situation where you get into your 30s, 40s, and 50s, and then you are talking about it. But still, it is not too late. If you want to pursue something, you have to find time anyhow, even though you have a family or whatever. So thank you so much. That is very, very useful.
Sure.
And moving towards your one of the passion, which is music. I can see a lot of things here actually. I was about to, I would have done some music show with you. Like, you will play something for us. But yeah, so moving to that actually, anything like specific experience that you remember always when you work in a group, in the music group actually?
Oh man. What kind of specific thing are you interested in? There's always stories.
Actually, which is something that you learned something from it, or you had the takeaways, like which you always remember for a lifetime or something like that. Or sometimes you have that click, turning point or something like that. Where
I think it took a while. I mean, I was doing the work, but it didn't register until really when I started designing for analytics, and I kind of went from being an employee to just a general product design contractor to, I'm going to run a business, and that's how I look at it. My consultancy is a business that I'm running. I didn't realize how much I needed to focus on working on the business. And in reality, what we're talking about here is a lot of it comes down to learning about marketing and learning about sales and all the stuff that is not about doing the design work and the design advising, which is the part I know how to do in and out from my experience, but I didn't know how to do that other stuff. And I had been doing it with my music career, but it didn't click to me just how much most of the artists and and anyone who's running a business, especially small businesses, entrepreneurs, people starting small consultancies, this is true for everybody, is that a lot of it is finding the people who have the problem that you help solve, or the thing that you offer. It's finding those people is a lot of the time that you will spend if you want to have this kind of career. It's not all just doing the work. And so it really clicked to me that that I can put the records out, but if the right people don't know that this music is out there and it's for you, but I can't find the yous out there, it doesn't matter. And so for me, I realized, as much as I don't like spending a lot of my time doing marketing and sales for my group, it's like, do you hear a tree when it falls in the forest? The old, and no one's there, right? It's the same thing. If I make a record and no one listens to it, does it matter anymore? Well, yeah, in a way, it's like I got my artistic statement down on plastic, or now it's MP3s, whatever. But I got my statement down, but I want people to hear it. And so I need to do the work to make sure people can hear it. So I think it just clicked that I need to put in, especially up front, a lot more investment. And then over time, hopefully the snowball builds and you don't need to spend quite as much time, because you now have a reputation, you have expertise, you have whatever that your thing is, you have a mailing list with a few thousand people on it. And, you know, for a small business person like me, or a self-employed person, I don't need 50 clients a year to make a living. You know, and they say with artists, it's like you need 1,000 true fans. If you have 1,000 true fans who will spend $50 total a year, which is not a lot for a passionate fan, well, there's 50 grand. In a lot of places, that's enough to live on. And so the idea here is you don't need the whole world to be your customers. You need to find a niche of people who care about the thing that you do. And I know I'm kind of relating this back to the business side of it, but my music for me is also a business. It's not just a hobby. It's not just my passion. I want to work as this part of my career. And so I'm always kind of thinking about the working in it and the working on it. And I don't know, that just when I went through all this kind of, I had a coach, and I've read a ton about marketing and sales to learn about these other skills I didn't have. I didn't realize how important that was to furthering the mission of the music, to getting it out there. So I know that's the thing. And it takes, some of this stuff takes a long time. I mean, people say like, oh, I can't find a job and all this. Well, I can tell, if you want to know how hard it is, not for pity parties, sob stories, but like when I moved to Boston and I joined the musicians union, because some of the work, a lot of people don't know this, but certain kinds of music work, you're required to be in the union because the union negotiates a collective bargaining agreement with a venue. This is usually true for like ballet, the big orchestras, the big Broadway touring shows, the big national touring acts. And this is to protect the musicians who back up the stars and all this kind of stuff. Well, in order to do that work, you have to join the union.
Yeah.
And the union is not a job agency. They don't post jobs. They're there to just ensure that good contracts are in place, that the workers, the musicians are protected. And and a lot of people originally, they join the union and they're like, how do I get gigs, right? It's like, well, no, that's between you and the contractor. The contractors are the ones that hire the musicians. And I remember when the head of the union at the time, who was also a percussionist, and he plays in the Boston Pops, and he's a friend of mine, and he said, you know, it could take 5 or 10 years. 5 or 10 years, like, because I had just moved to town. It's like year 2000, or I don't know, somewhere 2002 when I joined the union. And that's about how long it took before I got called to finally start playing better work, because the union work is well paid and our rights are protected well. And not all the work I do is union, because some of it's not relevant to jazz and some of the smaller types of touring things I do. But it took 10 years, but I was willing to keep following up and showing up is such, you go to the meetings and you follow up with the contractors. And every year I send them an email, say, here's my updated resume. How are you doing? I'm sure you've got a bunch of great talent already, but if you ever need someone that does X, Y, and Z, you know, I'm here. And a lot of times you get no reply to it. I mean, I did so much of this kind of stuff. And then all of a sudden you're at the right place at the right time. And my friend calls this developing your luck surface area. It's like, was I lucky? Well, yeah, but your luck surface area was so much bigger because you had been planting these seeds all over the place. And all of a sudden it's like, oh crap, yeah, actually this guy got called for the Pops, so he ditched my gig, and now I don't have a percussionist. do you have a white jacket and can you show up at Saturday at 8 o'clock and you need to bring these mallets and these drums? Yes, I can. And now your foot's in the door. Well, now it's time to just focus on the doing the work part, which is now I'm just here to play. Well, that's just table stakes, right? Like I already learned how to play the stuff. So now it's time to do the playing part. Now your foot's in the door. Now you're on the list. Now you get called again. And I didn't have a teacher here that like, that my teacher played in the Boston Symphony. And so, you have this nice easy route to getting your foot in the door. I didn't know anyone when I moved here, and it is possible, but it's a relentless amount of follow-up and remembering it's about relationships and trying to be helpful. That's a big part of it. Is not, you get these cold, I'm sure you get them on LinkedIn, these cold requests, and it's like, do you want to buy something? Do you need a Python developer? Do you know what, I get 10 of these. They don't even like look at my business. They have no idea what I do, and they're ready to sell me a team of 10 Python developers. It's like, here's a hammer. Do you need this hammer? I have hammers. Do you want to hit something with it?
Yeah.
What? Like, do you know my name? Oh, no, you didn't even spell my name right. Do you know what, like, no relationship. They're just clearly out to get something out of me. Nobody wants to feel that way. You have to turn that into like, how's it going? Like, what's going on with COVID in your business? And like, is your family safe? Yeah, thank you for asking. Like, what's going on with designing for analytics? And how's this? And figure out, have a relationship. No one wants to be sold to, but everybody likes to buy. That's another thing someone told me once, right? And it's so true. Like, it's all about relationships. So try to be helpful, and hopefully that luck will pay itself back. And so, a lot of my work, I get on calls, free calls all the time with people just to have a meet and greet and to start a relationship with somebody, because they don't need to buy something from me to have a relationship like this. It starts with you and I, what we're doing now, and we're developing that human connection. And then down the road, maybe you need my help, or I need your help, or you need a referral or whatever. And it's like, we have our thing now,
Never know, actually. Yeah, that's true, actually. Very valid point that you should have the network, actually, proper network. You should have that ability to reach out to the people.
Yeah.
It is not about somebody will reach out to you. It is always like when you are seeking something, it is very, very important that how you approach to the people.
Yep.
And one more, actually, very valid point that you mentioned is about, along with building this network as well, when you say that when somebody has to build their passion, you were looking into the business side of it as well. So yeah, that is true that when you start pursuing your passion, definitely you think about growing in a career as well. Sometimes you can convert those passions into your business side or your career growth. So that way you also grown towards your career side, that, you want to not only do it like just as an interest or the passion, I want to get revenue or earn something out of it. So definitely that is something that everybody goes under, but it is something you have to try it out, how it is going. And after that, you can think about how you want to grow in that particular area. You can always keep it as your interest, but if you want to convert that into business or your career side, definitely a lot more goes along that journey as well.
Sure.
It is not, when you're doing it for yourself, it is not like you don't care that much. But when you think about earning something out of it, like looking for setting up your own business, a lot more things goes, actually. You will take the criticism, how you take that criticism. People will not like you always. There are people, actually, more people to criticize you than appreciate you. So how you take that criticism, how you grow in that way as well. So if you can convert those criticisms into your favorisms, like, the people start appreciating and liking you, those criticizers as well, then it is a success, actually. So that is very true. And very,
you got to invite that criticism too. You got to I just put out a seminar. I teach a seminar called Designing Human-Centered Data Products. And I just begging for feedback to get, I show this to a data scientist, like, hey, can you just get on the phone for 15 minutes? I'm not selling you anything. I'd love to get your feedback on this, because I'm trying to serve people like you, but I don't know if this is helping or not. I don't want to make this product until I know it's going to help somebody. Most of the time, like 8 out of 10 people will say, I would be happy to do that. Or follow up in a month. I can't do it right now, but I'd be happy to give you feedback. Most people are like, wow, this guy values my expertise. I'd be more than happy to help. And you just ask for it, and you actually invite the criticism. Like, if anything, it's like silence is worse than criticism. I welcome criticism, because otherwise I have no idea what's going on. Like, I don't want to put stuff out in the world people don't need, at least in my design business. In the art thing, it's different because art is about what I want to say. Design is about serving,
Yeah, people
about
will
serving others. It's
that.
not about what Brian thinks it should be. It's me trying to figure out what others need through empathy. But I think you have to invite that criticism and go out of your way to ask for it and learn how to ask questions and interview people. And I think these are generally good skills to have. And if you don't know what to say, it's like, well, just ask someone how they're doing. Ask them what's challenging in their life. What are they enjoying right now? I mean, it depends on what you want to do. But if you want someone's advice, come to them with really good open-ended questions. You don't, if you're shy, guess what? You're supposed to be listening most of the time anyways, not talking. So just come up with some good questions and let them roll. They will feel good that you're like saying, I care about you. I want to hear about you, just like you're doing with me right now. That's a gift. And it says, I care. I want to hear about you. And that active listening, it's these skills, I feel like these are in short supply and they're like kind of common sense things, but especially like in my data work, I find more and more that the soft skill development that's part of the work of being a designer and teaching design is something that's really highly valued by people coming out of stats and math fields and some of this because it's not taught there. But guess what? It's like nobody really wants to get data science from you. They don't want analytics from you. Nobody wants that. They want something that comes out of data science that serves them. I want to know how much to spend on my marketing campaign. Which ads should I stop running? Because I don't want to waste money. I don't care about how you figured it out and how you made the sausage. I just need the sausage. I don't care how it's made. I don't want to know. I don't know what a p-value is. I don't want to hear about this stuff because it doesn't help me take the next step in my work. So when you start looking at it like that, where it's about, did I enable decision support? Did I enable this person to get what they needed? It's an act of serving. It's not about shoveling data science at them because I have a data science hammer or fill in the blank, software engineer, firefighter, or whatever. It's like, that's not what it is. It's about saving my life. Do you want some water? Do you want some water? I have high pressure water. I have foam.
Yep.
No, I want my house to stop burning. I don't want water. I want my house safe and my family safe. Can you help me? Right? The firefighter's not shoveling water at you. He's there to serve you in the sense of saving your life. And if they're not the same thing, they're different. One's about an outcome. One is about an output or an activity. We want those outcomes. And if you can think about how to help people with that, I think you're going to be far ahead in life and so many different things.
Yeah, definitely. People are more interested into the outcome actually, like output, what it is actually. They are not, at least they want the progress, like, you know, where they are from like now and then later sometime.
Yeah.
So there is always some progress is required. Otherwise, you just give up. If you just steady and you're not giving up anything, so nobody is interested in you. So thank you so much for sharing that. Moving towards you worked as an advisor in the expert network, and I can see lots of things in you actually as an advisor because you mentioned particular points around your passion as well as how when you started looking into the business side as well, you have that capability to convey, like, you know, what you are looking exactly. So when it comes to the, like, you know, when you were working as advisor in the expert network, what was it about? Like, you know, how was that experience?
Well, that's more of just an ongoing relationship I have with that one organization. So when they have companies that pay a membership fee to get their non-biased advice about analytics, data science, AI stuff that's not biased by companies, right? They wanted to be able to have a network of advisors in different facets of data science and analytics who don't come in with Google Cloud on their back or Amazon Web Services with some product to sell, because a lot of their client, you know, they have very, very big clients and a lot of them want unbiased advice where they're not being pitched a service. So I'm just one of, they have many different, and you know, experts. I kind of help out obviously in the design and the user experience part of that. And then through my own business, part of my work, a lot of my work, because I focus really on strategy and kind of upstream work with my clients, because that's where design begins, and the most value I can bring to my clients is really upstream. So it's advisory a lot in nature. So I do audits and strategy road mapping sessions, and sometimes I'm just retained, which means people are asking for my advice, like, should we do this? Should we do that? What do you think about this? And just having that expertise helps them avoid making costly decisions, that aren't the right or maybe the best choice for them early enough where it can save a lot of money or time. Like, if you've got 300 engineers working on something and it's not the right thing, you're spending crazy money and crazy time, and you're building baggage, like huge amounts of technical debt and baggage that no one's going to want to change it in 6 months. The developers aren't going to want to rewrite it. The business doesn't want to hear that it's 6 months behind and it's the wrong thing. So this is how design matters, is like, if it's not what people need, let's find out early before it's too late, right? So that's a lot of those kind of space I operate in terms of the advisory type work that I do.
That's great. Actually, you have covered like lots of, like, you touched lots of areas actually, strategic thinking plus the auditing, and which are like very important towards the business side as well. So I feel like you are on the proper mixture actually, like, in your entrepreneurship passion as well along the journey. So moving towards your you did the volunteering as well actually, which is like, I feel very, very important. Some of the people don't understand the importance of volunteering, like giving back to the community or doing something which is not only like a financial aspect of it, looking into financial aspect, but doing something to gain the experience and doing the volunteering. So would you like to provide more insights to that actually?
Sure. I mean, I could tell you my first volunteering that I remember as a kid was with the Arizona Humane Society. So we used to go and like down to the Humane Society where the animals are, and you're like, it's not always the most exciting work because you're like cleaning dog cages, but you got to play with the cats, and that was kind of at an early age. My parents are still big volunteers to this day, and I think they felt like that was a way to like get a young kid. I was probably 10 or 12 or something like that, to at least start to get that experience of volunteering and giving back. So that's kind of like my early, most memories of that. And then the most recent has to do with this COVID-19 stuff. So as you may know, there's a lot of hackathons and technology consortiums coming together to try to tackle this, from whether it's maker group. There's a maker group out in Colorado they're making PPE equipment. There are data science and analytics groups that are focused on bringing data and insight to decision makers. So I've kind of been offering to help mentor some of these hackathons and just provide counsel to leaders of projects who are building websites or applications. And so one of them was actually, ironically, this is very meta. I think it's called pandemicvolunteers.org. I don't remember if that's the domain, but I had been advising this guy on and his team on, part of it was just like, first it started out with like the design of the site and was it helping achieve the goals, and then we kind of realized that some of the definitions of the goals didn't align with the way I was perceiving the site. So I'm like, you may want to connect the dots here a little bit more. And then that kind of turned into helping him out with some strategy differences with his partners. He wanted to go right, they wanted to go left, and they were really at an impasse about which way to go. And so, my advice to him was not to pick a right or left for him, but to help him decide how he might decide which is the right decision for him. How do you make the decision? What are the factors that might go into working with these people? And what are the pros and cons of going right versus left? And just kind of helping him work through that kind of stuff. So that's some of the volunteering I'm doing now, is just trying to be available to some of these groups. And there's another one called the COVID-19 Healthcare Coalition, which is run MITRE.org is a big partner in that. So I'm just kind of getting involved with that literally this week to try to figure out what I'm just seeing now, what they're actually working on. And then is there a way for me to offer some help in that space, particularly probably some dashboard visualization and making sure whoever is supposed to be receiving this dashboard and using it can actually use it to get the information that it was intended to convey. Because some of these get very technical looking, I think, to certain people. And I mean, even just I had a webinar 2 weeks ago, and even just, you've probably seen, I don't know if you've seen the trend lines here of the infection rates, but sometimes they're on a linear plot on the y-axis, and sometimes they're on a logarithmic plot, which is very different. And so we kind of a designer had contacted me because the Financial Times had been using the log plot, and if you looked at the grid lines on the chart, they were not evenly spaced. It would be, even space, and then there'd be one like this high up, and then it would return this way. And he thought it made the data story look suspicious, like they were playing around with the data. And the reality is the reason it was like that is because they had plotted it. You would see like 100, 200, 1,000, 2,000, 10,000. They were going up 1, 2, 5, 10, 10, 12, 15, 100, 120, 150. And so we had a nice conversation just about like, well, what's the right way, or why might it have been done that way? And this kind of, just having a jam about that and talking out why they might have chosen to do it that way. And I kind of lost my train of thought here. I didn't mean to get on this long data visualization thing, but we're talking about volunteering, I guess, but working out those kinds of things. So what is the right visualization? And my answer is, well, who is it for? The log plot might be right for a Financial Times reader. That might be right because someone reading FT probably they have a portfolio. They probably know this domain well enough that they don't need to see the linear plot and a log plot, and they will understand why the curve is like that. Whereas maybe someone in the New York Times, or I don't know, some other journal, like you need both. You need to show the difference because they're not used to looking at logarithmic plots in their daily life, and it's not clear, So that kind of stuff, just asking them the questions so that they can figure out what the right answer is that's part of the design process,
Yeah, that's great. Actually, if you would like to share the URLs, I would be happy to share with the community as well. The COVID-19 URLs you mentioned, right?
Okay. Yeah.
Visualization ones, or whether it is volunteering one, I would be happy to share with my network.
Okay.
So thank you so much for sharing that. And moving towards your leadership style, actually, you are leading actually because you managed to keep your all two passions together. So what is kind of your leadership style, and any specific leader that you follow?
Well, for example, I did not want to have employees. So the closest thing I have to that is, I do run a dual ensemble. And so I have in the quintet formation, I have regular, colleagues that I work with. So in that sense, I'm the leader. But, I don't have employees in a team. So I don't really consider myself an expert on leadership. And that's always, especially with artists, it's always a fine dance to balance the fact that nobody's getting rich doing performing arts, particularly the kind of music that we do in the classical and jazz and world music space. We're not getting rich here. And so you have to balance everyone's contribution, the time they're putting in to what they're getting paid and all these kinds of things. I try to be very much like, this is the direction we're going until we have new information that suggests another way. And so I try to have an open dialogue about that. I'm starting a new series called Remotely Music with the Orchestrotica, which is our attempt to figure out what do we do as performing artists when we're not together and we can't do our regular go perform as an ensemble. But we have a mailing list and people that we just kind of prototyped it. I threw out an event. We got everyone on. I just basically said, everyone's going to get 10 or 15 minutes, do a solo thing, show people your studio, talk about your instrument, talk about what you do. It was great. And that was my MVP. Will anyone show up? Will it work? And it was great. The fans really enjoyed it. And so we're turning that into a series. And I don't know what it's going to be. I have 10 ideas for the next 10 episodes. Maybe we'll turn into a podcast. Planning is important. The plan might change. So there's a difference between planning and the plan.
Execution.
So it's good to plan, but just, you have to be flexible there. And so my thing with them is I don't have all the answers, but this is the way I want to go. And we had a meeting today on Zoom. We talked about what do they want to get out of it? What do I want us to get out of it as a collective group to make sure that everyone's feeling fairly treated. My time is being respected. I know what I get out of it. I know what's in it for the group. I know why am I here? Well, I know now why I'm here. That's my thing. And then it's up to them to make the choice. Do you want to join us or not? And that's, I don't know, that's my style, is get out early. If it's not right, figure it out early if it's not right. Because the more you just drag these things along, it's sunk cost bias. You probably know what that is. You got to make those decisions as early as possible. Because when people say, "Oh, I don't have time for this," it's like, well, how long did you stay doing the thing that you knew wasn't what you wanted to do just because it was the path of least friction? You're going to have to take a step forward somewhere else. So take the first smallest step to try out the thing you want to do.
Mm-hmm.
And remember, especially if you're early career, it's not a life sentence. Like your job is not, your job is to find out what works for you. And you're not going to know that unless you try a lot of stuff. You don't know if you don't like curry. If you don't ever try curry, you don't really know if you don't like it or not. You got to try and take that first step. And that's a lot of it, is that activation energy. If you can get past the first step. So for me, it's like, guys, I don't know exactly what we're going to do. Let's just schedule the Zoom. I'm going to send an email thing out. We'll see if people show up. Let's try it. And it's rough and it's loose. There's going to be problems, but let's just figure out, do we want to do this? And do they want us to do this? Like, and we prototyped it. All right, it's something. Let's make it something. And maybe we'll shut it down in 3. I don't know. But you have to try it. You can't overly plan it, but you can have a plan, but just, thing over plan.
Yeah, that's true. Actually, success and failure is not in your hand. Definitely, every person tries to get the success. So it's more important to putting the right amount of effort and trying, and you have to have that vision actually to pursue what you're doing. So thank you so much. You mentioned a couple of tips actually already, that be an explorer, work hard, or manage the time. So anything specific to end this podcast that you would like to tell to the audience when they always struggle between, or they always are complaining sometimes that this is not working, this is not happening in the life, or I'm not able to manage my time. So anything that you want to end up with, like on the positive.
Yeah, I mean, I think we talked about the managing your time thing, but I always challenge people, like, well, have you kept a log of how you spend all your time? Because chances are there's a place you could make the time. So is the time really the issue, or is it that you don't really know what you want? And I think this gets back to, what's that small step I can take towards the thing I want to do? Try to validate that. Do you really want to change your career and go be a fireman? Are you sure? Well, have you just called a fireman to ask it, what is it like every week for you? Like, just tell me what a Tuesday is like as a fireman. Like, call them up or walk down and ask them before you say, I'm quitting my job and I'm going to go do this. What's that small step? And chances are they'll give you an earful about what it's like. It's like, well, we sit around a lot, we cook, we play the cards, and then, like twice a week we might get called to go do ambulance work, right? And the guy hasn't mentioned fire yet. And then the next thing you realize, it's like, oh, so 80% of this job is being a first responder for non-fire related stuff. And in your head, you're like, I'm going to go battle fires all day. And they're like, yeah, we do that about 8 times a year. And so all of a sudden you realize, wow, is that really what I want to do? Well, I took the first step. Like, get out early if it's not right, but just, take that first small step and figure out, is this what I want to do? And I would say try a lot of different things early, before you have a family, or you have a mortgage, you have all this stuff. If you're early in your career, you have so much more flexibility to do these things before other things start to weigh you down. And trust me, the older you get, the harder it is to make these big life changes, because all you can see is the stability and the things that you had. And now it's about losing something to get something else. And that's loss aversion, which is another whole thing. I mean, you can go look that up, but that's a real thing too. The fear of the loss part. So when you don't have as much to lose early, it's easier, I think, to take those risks. So take advantage of that if you're young. Try a lot of different things. That would be my biggest advice if you're not finding the passion early. For me, I was lucky. I knew I liked these 2 major chapters of my life. So I just kind of knew this from a long art, but not everyone has that, so.
Yeah, so this is definitely helpful actually, that try the things and at least try to take the tiny steps towards it, and then if it's working out well for you, then it's like, continue growing in that particular field, or if it doesn't work out, then go for and try something different. So definitely, and early the age you try, you will get more actually opportunity to explore more. It is not that it is late in the age, like if you try it later in your age, but early you try, you will get into the better position, you can achieve more in your life. So thank you so much, and it was great talking to you.
You too.
I was just like getting tempted to have some music playing around us.
Well, maybe if we do another one, I'll play
I
some stuff for you.
plan to do that. So thank you so much, and audience, hope you will also enjoy it. So until we meet, happy leading, and let's live together. Bye.
All right. Take care.
So much. Bye. Take care.
All right.